Dragon Nest 2, or Dragon Sword as they've opted to title it, is the spiritual successor to Dragon Nest, one of the MMO genre's largest, most successful PvPvE anime MMOs. While the player base for Dragon Nest has all but dried up, and the game has faded into obscurity, Dragon Sword is a game on everyone's minds right now. This game has taken the Dragon Nest formula and applied it to a Genshin-inspired world filled with vibrant colors, terrain interactivity, massive world bosses, and most importantly, fully functional cooperative multiplayer. But what is Dragon Sword, and should we be excited? A lot of new information was released last week, and we're gonna go over all of that in an easy to digest, all-encompassing video. But before we jump into that video, I do want to thank all of our incredible patrons over on Patreon. Your support is absolutely insane, and I cannot thank you all enough for being a part of this journey. Also, if you have a moment, consider following me over on Twitch. I stream MMOs and gacha games there every weekend. I don't know how many of you recall 100 Soul. It was kind of a niche gacha game from Hound 13 released back in 2020. In a genre that was largely dominated by autoplay, the studio decided that it would be in their best interest to create a game that defined the norm, and 100 Soul came into being. This was a gacha game with no autoplay, and was admittedly very ahead of its time. Fast forward to present day, there are Genshin clones around every corner, bright, vibrant anime gachas that lack the personality, the depth that Genshin has. With few exceptions like Arknight's Enfield, Seven Deadly Sins Origin, and Wuthering Waves, players really haven't had anything to look forward to that had the potential to really contest Genshin. Dragon Sword is touted as being the spiritual successor to an already largely successful game, Dragon Nest, an MMO that was released 2 decades ago and generally considered to have some of the best combat and PvP in an anime MMO. With the history of quality games and a competent team of programmers, Dragon Sword has the unique potential to truly stand out amongst its competition. And blending both the innovative nature of 100 Soul with Dragon Nest could potentially make for a game that stands out as better than both. 100 Soul was built using the Unity engine. Dragon Sword, however, is being built using the Unreal Engine. The reason they've opted for Unreal Engine is due to another secondary title currently in development, Project M. Developing both games in the same engine makes it much easier for developers as they can share resources and knowledge. According to the devs, Unreal Engine also allows for more advantageous rendering and multi-environment construction. Now, Dragon Sword, while generally considered to be the spiritual successor to Dragon Nest, is still a very different game. It shares a lot of visuals. Many players have pointed out that they see resemblances between classes, between characters, even animations. The studio wanted to stress, however, that this is a very different game. If you go into this expecting a Dragon Nest 2, a direct sequel to its predecessor with similar mechanics and features, you're gonna end up very disappointed. With respect to the multiplayer of both 100 Soul and Dragon Nest, Dragon Sword is going to take advantage of new technology to not only improve upon, but also elaborate on various different features that were lacking from both aforementioned titles, including alterations to make action combat much more engaging in the multiplayer. And based off of what we've seen, the gameplay already looks pretty incredible. Larger scale multiplayer is going to be an important facet of the game, and I truly hope that they get this right. Dragon Nest was a hub MMO. What this means is that there were general hubs where players would occupy outside of running a set number of dungeons. Dungeons being completely instanced content. One major area that Dragon Sword differs from Dragon Nest is in its world. Dragon Sword is completely open world, allowing players to run around, to scale mountains, engage enemies in the distance, all without needing to run through repeated loading screens or being disconnected from other players. And although Dragon Nest was a hub MMORPG, the studio labeled Dragon Sword an MORPG, a multiplayer online RPG. They have yet to elaborate specifically on the size of the groups or concurrent players in a given area, but they confirmed there will be a world where players can see one another and choose to play in groups both out in the world or in dungeons. While many players have noted similarities to Dragon Nest in terms of gameplay and animations, Hound 13 have confirmed that the action combat system is actually borrowed and refined from another one of their games, 100 Soul. Although 100 Soul is a mobile exclusive game, so it does carry with it those very noticeable limitations. These are limitations that Dragon Sword definitely does not possess. Dragon Sword has the ability to scale massive bosses, entire environments, to knock enemies up into the air and perform aerial combos. This is an action combat system that really isn't found in anime games, and more than that in anime MMOs, and is something that we desperately need. Worth noting here is that the studio confirmed there will be a functional PvP system implemented in-game. I'm genuinely curious how PvP is going to be received, given that there is no class system in the game. Rather, much like Tower of Fantasy and Grand Saga, players will acquire other characters, with each character possessing their own unique weapons, combat styles, and essentially filling the role of a class archetype. But will these characters be earnable in-game? Will they instead be obtained via gacha? That is, at present, completely open for discussion. Certain characters will have environmental abilities, however, allowing you to, as an example, reach or obtain something that you wouldn't otherwise be able to. One issue that I know some people might have with the game is that there is a predefined central protagonist. You play as him. You don't have the option of selecting between male and female characters, I believe, at present, and the story is told from his perspective. This means that you are unable to create or design your own character, and also carries with it the potential to offer nothing in terms of customization either. Thankfully, as we can recruit other characters, we won't be forced into playing as him exclusively. And at the same time, this is also subject to change. This is just the information that we have available to us at present. While Dragon Sword is going to feature a rich narrative to follow in theory, the studio does want players to tackle the world and the story in a much less linear way, providing endless freedom to tackle the game however they feel they should. Run for 30 minutes in a direction to see what is at the top of the mountain in the distance, grind their way through hordes of enemies to see what treasures lie deep within the fortress. A linear traditional questing experience is something they want to avoid. However, it is still entirely possible to follow the narrative exclusively if that is your preference. While they have yet to be fully implemented at present, they also plan on introducing gameplay elements that are purely based on the time of day, including various types of weather conditions. It's also possible that they'll have ailments, debuffs, and elemental related affixes based on the weather, similarly to how players get cold and lose HP when in snowy regions in Breath of the Wild or Genshin Impact. While Hound 13 are not an incredibly large studio, they don't have the history that many current AAA studios have, they are working to release the game on multiple platforms. And before you jump to conclusions, as I know this is a topic of contention, that does not mean that the game is going to be built exclusively in support of one. On the contrary, they are working to develop the game with as much focus on each individual platform, both PC and mobile devices separately, much like Hada did with Tower of Fantasy. So the game isn't being built as a mobile MMO first and PC players receiving a sloppy PC port as an afterthought. If the game does find success, they are interested in developing a console version of the game as well, much to my surprise. I hate this term, I do, trust me, but this could genuinely be the Genshin MMO that we were all hoping for. An anime game with a deep, complex multiplayer built into its core, released on every major gaming platform. That sounds like a recipe for success to me. While the game does not have a 100% confirmed release date at present, Hound 13 did state that they will be holding closed beta tests in 2023. They did not confirm whether the beta tests will be for Asia or global, however, but given the success of both 100 Soul and Dragon Nest overseas, I wouldn't rule out the opportunity for us as Western players being able to potentially apply for access. A global release is in the works as well. This is not a game that is going to remain exclusively within Asia. It is unconfirmed whether it will be receiving a simultaneous global release or if we'll be receiving the game after its release within its country of origin. Given it is unconfirmed whether there will be gacha functionality, it's also unconfirmed whether there will be a cash out present or if it'll be overrun with pay to win. This is expected to be a free-to-play title. Free MMOs and free gacha games always carry that risk. We can hope not. I truly think that this game looks remarkable and has the potential to be a standout title, and this would be an immediate nail in the coffin often if this were to be prevalent. Honestly though, Dragon Sword looks like an anime MMO that I can totally get behind. Even if it turns out to have minimal multiplayer functionality, I believe this game is unique enough that it could truly excel in the market. I do not think it is a Genshin clone, as some people are labeling it upon first inspection, but I can definitely see the similarities. This does not make the game inherently bad though, it's just, at the end of the day, another gorgeous anime game. Now, if you're interested in other absolutely incredible looking games that could drastically alter the course of the entire gaming genre, check out some of my videos in the last gacha you'll ever play series, or alternatively, check out this video featuring every MMO releasing next month. These are games that you should be playing.